The Wench is Dead by Colin Dexter. Read by Kevin Whately. Intermittently on the Tuesday, he felt sick. Frequently on the Wednesday, he was sick. On the Thursday, he felt sick frequently, but was actually sick only intermittently. Early on the Friday morning, drained, listless, and infinitely weary, he found the energy to drag himself from his bed to the telephone and to apologise to his superiors at Kidlington Police HQ for what was going to be a non-appearance that late November day. On the Saturday morning, as he sat in the kitchen of his bachelor flat scanning the Times, dressed in pyjamas as gaudily striped as a Lido deck chair, he was aware that prickles of sweat were forming on his forehead. Afterwards, Morse thought he remembered passing a hand over a forehead that now felt very wet and very, very cold, and then taking 2 or 3 hugely deep breaths, and then starting to rush for the bathroom. It was Mrs. Green, the charlady, who came in Saturday mornings, who rang 999 immediately and demanded an ambulance. She'd found her employer sitting with his back to the wall in the entrance hall, conscious, seemingly sober, and passably presentable, except for the deep maroon stains down the front of his deck chair pyjamas. At 10:15, Morse, with an itchy grey blanket draped around a clean pair of pyjamas, vomited copiously and noisily into a white enamel kidney bowl, while the ambulance turned into the grounds of the John Radcliffe Hospital and stopped outside the accident, casualty and emergency department. The kidney bowl had been left within easy reach, and Morse, on a hospital trolley now, was retching violently if unproductively, when a young houseman came to stand beside him. "You've got a bit of nasty tummy trouble." Morse shrugged vaguely. "I'm all right, really." "You're not all right, I'm afraid. At best you've got a stomach ulcer that's suddenly decided to burst out bleeding. At worst, you've got a perforated ulcer." For the next few minutes, the doctor prodded, squeezed, and kneaded the paunchy flesh around Morse's abdomen. "Could lose a couple of stone, your liver's enlarged." "I thought you said it was the stomach." "Oh, it is. You've had a stomach hemorrhage." "What's that got to do with my liver?" "Do you drink a lot, Mr. Morse?" "Well, I like a glass of beer, yes." "How many pints do you drink a week?" "A week? Well, a day, then." Morse divided by 3. 2 or 3, I suppose. "Do you drink spirits?" "Occasionally." "What spirits?" Morse shrugged. "Scotch, sometimes." "How long would a bottle last you?" "It depends how big it was." But Morse immediately saw that his humour was ill-appreciated, and he swiftly multiplied by 3. "Week, 10 days. About that." "How many cigarettes do you smoke a day?" 8, 10. Morse was getting the hang of things now, and smoothly dividing by 3. "Do you ever take any exercise? Walking, jogging, cycling, squash?" But Morse had reached for the kidney bowl, and as he vomited, the houseman observed with some alarm the brightly crimsoned specks of blood. For some while afterwards, Morse's mind was somewhat hazy. Later, however, he knew that the angel of death had fluttered its wings above his head, and he felt a sudden frisson of fear, as for the first time in his life he began to think about dying. When Morse awoke the following morning, he was aware of a grey dawn through the window of the small ward, and of a clock on the wall showing 4:50 a.m. The tubing strapped to his right wrist, and stretching up to a saline drip bottle hooked above his bed, was dragging uncomfortably against his skin. The awkward apparatus rendered him immobile, of course, at least until he had mastered the skills of the young man from the adjacent bed, who had spent most of the previous evening wandering freely, holding his own drip high above his head like some Ethiopian athlete brandishing the Olympic torch. Through the archway to his right, he could see a slimly attractive nurse talking earnestly to a fresh-faced young houseman, and soon the two of them were walking quietly, unfussily into the ward, then disappearing behind the drawn curtains of the bed diagonally opposite Morse's. When he'd first been wheeled in, Morse had noticed the man who occupied that bed, a proud-looking man, late 70s perhaps, with an Indian Army moustache and a thin thatch of pure white hair. For a second or two, the old warrior's watery pale eyes had settled on Morse's face, but the rampant septicemia, which had sent a bright pink suffusion to his waxen cheeks, had taken from him all power of speech. It was 5:20 when the houseman emerged from behind the curtains, 5:30 when the porters wheeled the dead man away. And when exactly half an hour later the full lights flickered on in the ward, the curtain round the bed of the late Colonel Wilfred Dennis
Sample complete. Ready to continue?